Hi, everybody. You're listening to WXCD 107.3. This is DJ Nikki. You're about to listen to Jonathan Cortez from elwoodcity.org with the weekly news wrap-up, special edition interview with Mayor Tony Court.
Good evening, everyone. Today will be the first in what will hopefully become a tradition of having public officials on the show. So today we're with Mayor Tony Court, and elwoodcity.org doesn't have any political stance on any elected official. Whatever we're asking, it's just questions that we feel the public should be aware of.
elwoodcity.org isn't one way or the other.
No.
There used to be a little disclaimer that went along with that. The views expressed in this interview don't necessarily express the views of elwoodcity.org.
Yeah, that is pretty much how it is. Okay, so how are you today, Mayor?
Doing great, Jonathan. It's great to be here, and I'm happy to be a part of this interview process.
So, for those of us who don't know, how long have you been mayor?
That's a good question, Jonathan. Starting out, I'm in my second term. Each term is 4 years, so it's 6 years. But previous to that, I was acting mayor for 2 years when the mayor before me, Mayor Clyde, was in the hospital and sick. So I'm actually 8 years I've been mayor, and I got 2 more years on this term, so it'll be 10 before I'm up for re-election again.
And were you on the council before that?
I was. I started out on council. I started out on planning commission, then I became council vice president in my first term, and then after that I became council president for 2 years. So I was on council for 4 years total, and then became mayor.
Yeah, so that's a fairly long record of community service then.
It is. You got to be involved in the community, and you got to want to do this, because it's not all peaches and cream, as I like to say. But you got to care about your community, and I'm going on 12 years starting with the planning commission, and hopefully I'm going to be going longer than that. But I do care about the community immensely, and like you said, you have to care to volunteer some of your time, a lot of your time.
And I guess, again, for people who don't know, what exactly are the responsibilities of the mayor?
There's a lot. Number one responsibility is the police department. The Elwood City Police Department, I'm in full and total control from the day-to-day operations to the administrative part. So that's the number one priority. And then also, in helping the community out, there's more to being a mayor than just the police department in Elwood City. There's the administrative part, there's the mayoral duties, there's the social functions, things of that nature. So it's a full-time job to do it the way I do it. I probably put in 50, 60 hours a week being the mayor of Elwood City.
Well, that is excellent. And at elwoodcity.org, we do see a lot of that. So you do have, a good publicity with all of the programs in the community that you're involved in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Like I said, it's very time-consuming. I believe being a mayor of Elwood City is almost a full-time job. It's not a part-time gig. I put in probably 50, 60 hours a week, like I mentioned before, to do it properly, and that's including all phases of the community. So yeah, it's definitely not a part-time job for me, and you got to enjoy it, and I do. And I'm proud to be the mayor of Elwood City.
Well, that is excellent that you're so dedicated to Elwood. So what is it that, what do you like about Elwood? Are you a lifelong resident?
I am, Jonathan. I'm 58 years old, and I was born and raised here in Elwood City. And the thing I talk mostly about Elwood City is the families, the traditions, growing up in this city, all the wonderful people we have in this community. And thinking back to my childhood, all the things we've done together in this city. I like to say that no community comes together like Elwood City, whether it's a fundraiser or just a great story is a gentleman in his 80s was lost. The whole community came together in searching for this gentleman a few years ago. It's the rich traditions, it's the people, the wonderful people we have here that makes me proud to be the mayor of Elwood City, and we're going to continue on that path.
Okay, so now moving on to the police department.
Mm-hmm.
So since 2014, when Chief Mark Remunis's position was eliminated, you've taken a more direct control. So can you go into specifics?
Yes, Chief Remunis' his term was over in 2014. At that point, council wanted me to be more proactive with the police department in scheduling and taking a look at overtime. Overtime has been something that's been going on in Elwood City Police Department for 35 years. I'm happy to report, since I have taken over that part of it also. I don't do the scheduling, Lieutenant Kingston does, but I oversee it, that this past year we were under budget by 25%, which is probably $200,000 savings to the borough. And I might add that police arrests and citations are up in that time frame also, which means there's more overtime because of court time and things like that. So what I'm trying to say in review is we've been under budget this past year by 25% and still have maintained the protection for the community as far as arrests and citations being up in our community. So arrests are up and the overtime is down, and that's a good thing for our community as we protect the law-abiding citizens.
Yeah, and every citation ends up being revenue for the borough.
Mm-hmm.
And, when people complain about that, I always tell them, well, if you don't want to have to boost up the revenue for the bureau, don't break the law.
Yeah, and I got to mention, I would never compromise the safety of our community for overtime. If that means having 4 police officers out on a suspicious weekend where there could be some activity going down, then we do it. Because I believe in protecting the law-abiding citizens at all costs. And that's special to me, and that's never going to change as long as I'm mayor.
Okay, and I mean, I personally agree with that safety is a priority.
Number one.
With just overtime in general, at least from what I've gathered at council meetings, it still is an issue. So what do you think are further steps that could be taken to decrease overtime?
Well, I think that has to go through negotiations between the bargaining unit and the council and the solicitor of Elwood City. The one issue that you can't get around is replacement time. You have to have 2 police officers on duty at all times. So if one police officer calls off for any reason, whether it be overtime, sickness or vacation day, then there's going to be overtime. I mean, that's just the way it is because you have to have 2 police officers, and I want 2 police officers on duty at all times. So that's an issue that's tough to get around. But I believe in maybe negotiating to the point where some things can be done in negotiations through the bargaining unit.
Okay, now when you say on duty, does that mean within the borough?
Yes, in the borough of
Okay.
Elwood City, we have to have 2 police officers per contract on duty at all times.
Does that include Elport Patrol?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But if, officers are called out to, like, Wayne Township, does that mean that somebody has to come into Elwood?
Yeah, they're not going to be called out for that reason. They're going to be called out for overtime for replacement time if somebody calls off. But
Okay.
we don't have any jurisdiction in Wayne Township.
Oh,
We aid them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If somebody,
We aid them.
if there's a call in Wayne Township that an officer has to respond to aid.
Yeah, we do aid in those areas, life-threatening situations and things like that. We do aid in surrounding areas, and also they come to our area. Also, they come to
Yeah.
the city. So that's mutual aid, and I'm all for that. I can never turn my back on somebody in Wayne Township who's in dire need of a police officer.
Yeah,
And I got to tell you, they've probably been down here more than we've been there, and I believe in that wholeheartedly.
yeah. So for the background on that was an issue that was brought up in council, was if the Elwood City Borough should be reimbursed by other townships and municipalities when our officers go out. And I don't clearly know, we need to answer. That's just, you have to if there's a threatening situation.
You should definitely do, and there's no payback to our borough. Like I said, it's a mutual aid thing where we assist them, and in turn, they would assist us down here.
Right, and it
So
almost seems
it's
like
everybody working together.
You wouldn't want to force Elwood City to reimburse, because if that's actual that they come help us more often, then we would end up losing more money reimbursing them, because, if we do it for them, they'd have to do it for us, and
Yes, it's a
if they're
give and
helping
take
us
type
out
of
more
thing.
often, it would
Exactly
end up being a
right.
deficit.
Everybody's helping everybody out for the same cause, to protect the law-abiding citizens.
Right.
And it's called mutual aid, and like I said, I'm all for that.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, council didn't make a clear decision on that. They just decided to look into the specifics to see if indeed it balances out, or if other municipalities come in more. So another issue I've heard about, is patrol hours, and I've talked to you before, and right now our officers write reports for pretty much everything, and I look at those reports a couple times a month, and there are if they patrol Elport uneventfully, they'll report that. And to me, it seems like a pretty good thing, especially nowadays. There's a lot of negative publicity with police departments, and a lot of that stems from them being closed. You don't know what they do. If they do something that is unethical, it's hard to prove. But here in Elwood, it seems like we have a very open police department.
I want everybody to be responsible for their actions. So that's why there's reports being written, because you can't hide anything then. In the past, there was some abuse, I believe, before I became mayor, that a lot of reports weren't being written. they were deciding what reports should be written and what shouldn't be written. And too many reports weren't being written that should have been written. So we've changed that in the past 2 years to the point where everything is being reported. Everything. We have nothing to hide. We're going to report everything, and we're going to be adults about this, and it's for everybody's safety. Like I said, we're not hiding anything. There was some things in the past that weren't reported that should have been. So now we took that equation out of it altogether, and they're writing reports on everything. It's time consuming. A lot of officers, they complain a little bit, but it's for the best of our community, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so you are going to stick with it. It was a while ago, probably about half a year ago I talked to you, and you said that you were considering maybe eliminating some of them, but you have
The only
decided
drawback
against
to all those reports is it takes them off the streets a little bit longer because they're writing reports, in the squad room. But we've had a lot of success with the report writing, so I'm making them do both. So it's just not too much lag time for them. But they're going to be out there in full force, protecting the community, and also writing reports about what's going on in our city daily. It's for their own protection also, I believe. The way society is now, it's for their own protection.
Yeah. So I kind of want to know, I keep hearing about a bulletproof vest that you bought. So
Yeah.
what's the story behind
This
that?
is like 6 years ago, maybe 5 years ago. My proactive approach in the police department with illegal narcotics, Chief Remutis at the time approached me and says, Mayor, you're doing so much with illegal narcotics and your proactive approach, you should have a police vest for your own protection. And most council members were for it, and it passed 5-2. And I do wear it. And like I said, it's for my own protection because of our proactive approach against illegal narcotics. Chief Remutis had a wonderful suggestion, and it was passed by council 5-2. And truthfully, I'm glad they did.
So you do occasionally are, involved with the police when they're
Certain times when we have some things going on with illegal narcotics, I am.
okay.
That's my proactive approach from the beginning against the illegal narcotics, and we've been successful in that approach.
So you do keep the amount of drug arrests in your office. So
I
what's
do.
the tally at for this year?
Up to date is 334 drug arrests that we've been involved in since I've taken office.
Oh, since you said okay.
334 since I've taken office. Now, some of that has been also with the task force also, but that's everything combined is 334, which I believe is a lot. There's a major drug problem in our city, and we're not going to get them all, but we're going to do what's best for our community in protecting the law-abiding citizens.
So I can guess the answer to this. So you do believe that the high number has led to a decrease in narcotic
I believe
use in
so.
Elwood?
I've heard it many times that it's quite clear that Elwood City is not the place to do drugs. And that's not saying there's not drugs here, but it's not the place to do drugs because we're taking an active role in drug curtailment in our community. And we're going to keep doing that. We're never going to get them all, but we're going to do as much as we can. I believe 95% of all illegal activity in the community stems from illegal narcotics. So we're here to protect the law-abiding citizens and clean up our area, and we're doing that. And we're going to continue to do that.
Okay, well, I don't know how I feel about saying 95%, but I mean, it is great that we've been cracking down on narcotics. Since you've taken office, the level of priority on fighting narcotics has increased. Can you explain what you've done, what changes you've implemented to make it a priority?
Exactly, I can. We really started out with my Crime Watch program. We implemented that from day one. And then the proactive approach in dealing with illegal narcotics. We started with tip sheets. I review them every day. And that was our top priority, was illegal drugs in our community. We have stayed on that path. And there's been a major emphasis on that. And we've had a lot of success by that because what I'm trying to say is anybody coming in driving, we pulled over they might not use their turn signal, had a tail light out. So now we have probable cause to search their car with our police dog, Joseph, who's one of the best in the state. And that's how we started really getting a lot of drug arrests, because we took the proactive approach in dealing with speeders, people breaking the law, to give us a probable cause to look in their vehicle, and you'd be surprised what we found in these vehicles.
And I can corroborate that. I do read a lot of reports where people are driving past midnight and it is just something like they didn't use a turn signal and then they get pulled over, and sometimes they are indeed well, DUI is a big thing, but sometimes they are carrying narcotics on them.
One of the major drug busts we had was the people from Detroit coming in. 1 o'clock in the morning, they didn't use their turn signal, and our police officer pulled them over. Upon pulling them over for not using their turn signal, our police dog Josic sniffed out, tucked in the back wheel of their vehicle, above the wheel, was heroin. 839 bags of heroin, wrapped in cellophane, covered with grease. These individuals are so brazen that they didn't think that anybody would find it if they did get pulled over. But they didn't know about Josic. He went right to it, and that was the second biggest drug bust that we had, with 839 bags of heroin coming into our community. And we took it out because of that proactive approach. And that was a major, major, major drug bust here in our community, because that was targeted for, as a lot of bags of heroin, uncut.
I love that our dogs are so well trained that they could sniff out 800 bags of heroin covered in grease.
Tremendous.
Grease is a strong smell.
Exactly, and it didn't take long for Josic. He laid down right by it, indicating that there was a hit there.
That's awesome.
And yes, that was a major, major plus for our city. Can you imagine specks of that heroin hitting our streets with our children? Our police dogs are second to none. It's a program we started, myself and Mike, where we got Josic and we breeded him for an offspring with Joe Don Kennels, and we got to pick the top dog, and he had 6 puppies, and that's where Ranger comes into effect now, which is Josic's offspring, and he's trained to the point where he's ready with drugs also now. So we're fortunate now today. We have 2 outstanding police dogs, and they've been a major, major plus to our community. The second one, I might add, was no cost to the borough at all, because because we breeded
You guys got
Josic with
Ranger
Joe
for
Don.
free because you breeded him.
Yes, it was a great idea we had, myself and Mike, and that's been a huge success also, to have these 2 dogs.
Yeah, because I know police dogs usually are like $7,000.
They're expensive. It could be
Yeah.
anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000.
And then all the training expenses. So.
Yes, and they go through extensive training.
Yeah.
It's going to be sad. Josic's probably going to be winding down here beginning of May, because
Yeah, you guys are planning a big retirement send-off
we
for
are.
him.
We're going to do a proclamation for him, and
That's great.
he deserves it. He comes in my office daily when he's on duty, and we got to be tight. At first, it wasn't that way, because he was checking me out, and I was a little bit
Yeah.
apprehensive about him because I seen him in action. But yeah, we got really close. So it's going to be a sad day when Josic's not going to be in the police department.
How old is Joseph?
He's going to be 9 years doing this, so
Yeah.
usually it's about 8 and a half. So now it's 9, and it's about time for Josic.
So he's put in a good amount of service.
It's such a demand on them. It really is. Like when we go into schools and check the floors, we have to have 3 dogs, because it's so tough on the dog to go through all the lockers that they all take 1 floor, the way the hallways are with their paws and things like that. So we use 3 dogs when we go unannounced into the schools, which is another program that we've been pretty successful with. Believe me, if there's illegal narcotics, these dogs will find it.
Okay, so moving on from that, we're pretty much close to a wrap-up. So last thing I'd like to ask is, what do you think you can do on your end to increase cooperation with the council, since it does seem to be a point of contention when I'm at meetings?
There's some council members that don't have to agree with everything we do. That's their prerogative. For whatever reason, we've had success, and we're not going to change our approach. We're in charge of the department, and we're going to keep it that way.
Okay. And I do have overtime numbers from the police department compiled, and they are down a bit. So I'm not sure if this includes what aspects of overtime it includes, but for 2014, the department total was $182,056.58, and in 2015, it was $166,300.77.
Yeah, it's down. Now, you got to remember, there's always going to be overtime, because it's replacement time
Yeah.
that you cannot get away with. Anybody calls off, takes a sick day or a vacation day, or decides not to come to work that day, you have to call somebody out. That's overtime. You can't do anything about that. But I'm proud to say that they're working hard, and the arrests are there to show what they're doing in the meantime. And like I said, the overtime is down, the part that we can control.
Does your
done.
department have a deterrent to stop them from calling off work?
Can't do it. It's it's a police contract. You have to have 2 on a shift. So every time somebody calls off, there's going to be replacement. You can't stop somebody from calling off for a sick. You can't make them not call off.
Well, I mean, I know in other
they call off
companies,
for a
if
lot of
somebody
reasons.
calls off so many times, there's the repercussion for it. So I just didn't know if
No, they
there
take a
was any-
vacation day or a sick day. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is with the contract. The police contract's a little bit different than most contracts. Well, they do call off for whatever reason. I mean, they might take a sick day, a vacation day. A lot of times it's on weekends, but there's nothing you can do about that because per contract, you have to have 2 on a shift. And they're allowed to call off like
Now
that.
again, how many do we have altogether, full-time
10.
and part-time?
10 full.
10 full-time?
And we're down part-timers now because we hired one as a full-timer.
I remember
So we're in the
that.
process of trying to hire 2 more, but it's tough to get part-timers because, that's not their first priority. Because
Yeah.
they work in other police departments and things like that, and pay scale's a little bit different, so it's
Right.
tough to keep a part-timer. They want to move up and be a full-timer also, and you can't blame them.
So do you recommend that the council hire another full-time?
I would like to see him hire another full-time police officer. We have an excellent candidate that's a part-timer right now. I think it would save money also because of the pay scale. When you start out, you're at 75% of your salary. And like I said, we have an excellent candidate right now that would fill that void, and I think it would cut down a little bit of overtime because part-timers are, if they're supposed to work, if something comes up, sometimes they call off also. They're allowed to work like 29 hours a week on top of that.
Yeah, is that for the benefits or something like that?
Yeah, health benefits, and that's just the way it is across the country. The 29
Yeah.
is the Obama's way, so you have to abide by that with the contract also.
Yeah.
But I got to say, I'm very happy with our police department and their work ethic. If I tell them to do something, there's never any, they're doing it. We've been very fortunate. We have an excellent police department, and also working hand in hand with the district attorney's office in Newcastle. It's been a match made in heaven for us.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Court, and that concludes our discussion with the mayor. So maybe not next week, but the week after that, we'll have another guest, and have a good weekend.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, thank you guys. That was Jonathan Cortez from elwoodcity.org starting off a new campaign to interview city officials. And you were listening to the weekly news wrap up here on WXED 107.3.